Hey everyone, so I have Mr. Arvind Ganesan over here, the co-founder and chief commercial officer of EcoSoul Home, one of the fastest growing sustainable D2C brand perhaps in the world. Arvind has had quite a long career in the corporate sector, quite a successful one at that. And then suddenly out of the blue, when the pandemic hit or just before, he decided to leave everything and pursue what is arguably a very risky kind of a path, one of entrepreneurship, and second in the D2C space, a consumer goods, especially in sustainability space, seems like a very risky task. So I just wanted to ask a few questions with him and interact to see what his state of mind was at that time and how things have played since then. So Arvind, please, I would love to know your thoughts on how you decide to make this big step of leaving a corporate space and then starting you along with your co-founder Rahul.
Yeah, man, was definitely was not an easy decision, and was also a decision which was pretty binary, right? You're either all in or you're not, and that's as you know with entrepreneurship. Uh, but essentially, why we decided to go launch in this space, our conviction came from our time at Wayfair for both Rahul and I, right? I mean, uh, Wayfair themselves were exploring like sustainable furniture and decor. Unfortunately, supply market just wasn't there in that space. But when you think about the whole sustainability space, the whole place started with pretty much followed Maslow's hierarchy for the most part. Started with the food and beverage space, right? What you put in your mouth, and so a lot of the organic USDA certified or plant-based meat companies came in and got some fantastic growth stories and valuations. And, that was the first wave. And then the second wave came with Honest Company in the personal care segment, which next. And we believe the third big segment that was going to be the wave after these two was going to be the home essential space, right? People spend a lot of time around their homes, especially with the pandemic hitting. And people were forced to sit back and when they were home and with the pandemic and where they had to use more disposables, they started thinking, how can it be more sustainable with our everyday home needs? And when we went out there and saw the market out there, there were traditional big CPG brands that had been around for 50 years selling pretty much the same stuff and had not been disrupted. They'd not even made any steps to go sustainable. And when we saw such a wide open market, we decided, hey, there's an opportunity to go here and capitalize. The second thing was the early stage brands that did try to go and enter the segment. For two reasons, didn't succeed, right? One, they were very narrow and niche in their focus. Like, hey, I'm going to be just a toilet paper company. From the very get-go, EcoSoul's mission was to be multi-category, multi-aisle in our approach. Truly omni-channel, both straddling retail and the physical and the online space, both hand in hand and playing off of the customer journeys across those two spaces. That's number one. Number two was pricing, right? People, while they wanted to go more sustainable home essentials, people didn't want to pay the premiums of 80 to 120% over the traditional mainstream alternatives that the other eco brands are offering. And this is where EcoSoul, with our fully vertically integrated supply chain, we're able to fundamentally change this value proposition and say, hey, we can bring these very same products within that 10 to 25% of mainstream plastic or paper goods. And that's kind of where we got the conviction to go start. And, we're fortunate now to have seen some great growth and also to be working with Xena, who's played a very integral part in our growth story on the D2C side.
What were some of the earliest challenges when you began, when you and Rahul got together, you were building your ideas, and obviously you did a lot of research. What were some of the initial challenges that you faced in the early phases?
Yeah, man, great question, right? I'd say on the first thing was the operationally getting set up, right? We were in a D2C business where there was physical inventory involved in the midst of COVID. How do we get manufacturing up and running? And then what is the right operating model, right? We could have taken some easier choices. per se, right? Just going and sourcing and white labeling stuff. But we chose to go build a vertically integrated manufacturing model because we know that is fundamentally what was going to solve the pricing issue for our customers. So we did that very differently. It took us almost 6 to 7 months to really even stand up the supply chain for the very first wave of our products, right? And so that was one of the big things where we had to make a tough choice to do it the right way, even if it took longer. And we think that fundamentally built the ethos of how the company operates going forward and help build our fundamental competitive advantage, right? That's one challenge that we faced. And to do that in the midst of COVID, when factories were shut down, to solicit and convince the right contract manufacturing set was definitely a challenge. I mean, as we succeed, of course, a lot of manufacturers want to come work with us, but in those early days, to be able to get even the supply chain going was probably one of our biggest challenges. The second thing was the financing aspect of it, right? Early on, we bootstrapped the company and essentially only inventory financed, right? So we didn't go and down the model of raising venture capital right at the very get-go. So we wanted to prove product market fit, which means we had to be very prudent in terms of understanding the market and understanding what are the headway SKUs that we wanted to launch with and where the market was going and was going to exist like probably 12, 18 months from the time we started. So we had to make some very good guesses because that was going to prove our 0-1, right, in terms of product market fit. So making those right decisions was challenging. And that's where, like, I think we partnered with Xena as well in terms of really doing a very detailed analysis of both the online market as well as IRI and Nielsen to figure out what that offline market looked like and where we could straddle both the spaces in a good way. So I'd say that's the second big challenge from commercial perspective, is really picking the right initial product set to launch the brand with, knowing that we're going to have a multi-category, multi-assortment one day in a retail space. I would say the third biggest challenge, man, as an entrepreneur, is going all in, right? I mean, a lot of early D2C brands and people who launch, they're like, oh, let me do this on the side, right, and get it to scale to a certain degree before I give up my corporate job. And we felt that approach didn't work, right, for Ecosol. You had to be all in, and because and it meant giving up on a very lucrative corporate job to come and do this day to day and keep your motivation up and going in the midst of a pandemic where you're working remotely. So I think that full all-in commitment was critical for us, for both Rahul and me, right? When we were doing Ecosol, it was just Ecosol, and we did that for 14 months without any salary, right? So that's something we felt was critical in shaping the direction of the company and our commitment to really building the brand.
Yep. I still remember, I think the first time we met was in a pitching event for one of the angel groups. Both of us were pitching. We were on the same side of the table and we saw each other's pitches. And I think that's how we got connected. I still remember your pitch at that time. I think you had a virtual screen. Obviously the PPT right now is far better than what it was. Your branding was very rudimentary at that time. Obviously you're just starting out. And I still remember your projections. It was a hockey stick at that. It was quite a hockey stick. From somebody from the outside, I felt that was very aggressive. That was unachievable from from the point of view of being an early brand. But since we have known each other for quite a while, I know you far outpaced, exceeded expectations from what those calculations, forecasts were at that time. Do you think you would pinpoint some of the reasons why that would have happened, how you were able to succeed, break through all those, shatter those projections at that point, and what were some of the reasons that could have happened?
Right. I mean, great questions, man. So I would say the first thing that was truly we decided we were going to be very omni-channel from day one. We knew in the new world, you needed to have online distribution be really good at online. There's no question, right? That's fundamental for D2C. But also you need to straddle that offline space where the customer could discover your brand, right, in a retail store or online and vice versa, right? And traverse those journeys very seamlessly. I believe that really, now that seeing the way the brand has grown, our all of our projections, we honestly believe that with having distribution close to 4,500, 5,000 stores now in the US, and having a pretty well established presence on Amazon, we do see that overall our cost of customer acquisition was really brought down, operating in a truly omni-channel way, right? Because just compared to other D2C brands, right? That's number one. The number two, I would say, of course, is again the synergies that they bring to each other. So each one feeds off the other channel and helps drive that additional incremental revenue, right? Which is also very good. But I think the third thing was also like not every D2C brand can scale in a similar way, right? For example, every D2C brand has to understand who their customers are and where do they want to meet these customers, right? And what methodologies when it comes to growth actually works for their specific category and segment. In our case, we realized very quickly that Amazon and Walmart and the marketplaces were the way to go along with driving retail distribution. That was the first step. So we were we wanted to be laser focused in terms of how we did those marketplaces. So early on, when there were so many agencies that tried to pitch to us about PPC expertise, and when Xena came and talked to us, one of the things was like that was impressed was like, hey, the AI powered engine, right? Hey, the ability to optimize bids on hourly, on a keyword basis, on an almost real-time basis, really gives us an edge, right, in terms of performance in marketplaces. We felt that drove a lot more sales for us in our category than, let's say, going and spending thousands of dollars on meta advertising, right? That was probably very popular 3 or 4 years ago. We knew that was not the path for us. And so we were a little bit more prudent when it came to like traditional ad channels like Google, Meta, and so on. The second thing was really, we felt that as we are growing and scaling our D2C brand, the whole aspect around influencers, affiliates, and truly driving user-generated content and really getting the branding up and running was another thing that's very critical in our space, right? How do you distinguish yourself amongst a sea of brands online, right? Was something, and or even in retail shelves, right? How does your product stand out compared to other products? So those are two areas that I think we were very laser focused on. We put a lot of effort on early on, and in fact, when you said like our original packaging was rudimentary, and we spent a lot of effort post that to really revamp and make sure that we got the message across to the customer, and that helped really Philip and a lot of our projections. Of course, a team. It's always a team effort. It's not the founders. It's the vendor partners. It's the people that you work with who come along that journey. And so I've been very fortunate at EcoSoul to have a great team, both internally as well as externally with partners like Xena.
Leading up to, like, what has your experience been working with Xena?
It's been fantastic, right? I mean, what I find very fascinating is, especially, I will say, once you pass that first 90 days of a product's launch, I think the first 90 days is always a little bit of a learning, right, for any ML AI algorithm. But once we've gotten past the first 90 days, I've seen that Xena's algorithms tend to do really well, right? Really see you understand the category, learn what has happened in the first 9 days, understand what hypotheses work, what don't work, and then really continue to optimize as the landscape changes, right, around CPCs, around keywords. And so I think that from a performance perspective, really having that level of rigor has been great with Xena, right? And the level of reporting, right? The second thing is that I find about Xena's great partners, you guys are not just ad guys, right? You understand that ads will only work as good as the content around it is. So always pushing our team to produce better content, to go there and improve the quality of our primary images, our A plus content, our content when it comes to videos, right? Our content when it comes to social media, our content when it comes to the user generated aspect with influencers and affiliates. And all of this ultimately does drive more and more and more organic click through, right? We know the cost per clicks on Amazon are not getting any cheaper, right? So helping really drive that organic base of traffic has been something that's been great. Xena's been great in terms of helping us push that envelope and be a good partner, thought partner there.
Yeah, very kind of you, Arvind. And finally, what's next for you? What's next for EcoSoul? Where have you set your next sights onto?
So I think with EcoSoul, as you know, we have now come and done very well in the tabletop space, right? The tableware space, as well as the compost bag segment, we've done quite well. But we're now also trying to see how we can expand just this portfolio within tabletop. Now we're getting into like clamshells and food storage, right? Same when we take our bags, we're expanding into like compostable Ziplocs. So like the first part of our innovation has been like just, hey, where our existing spaces we've been able to capture, share, right? And how can we incrementally expand? The second thing is we've taken some rather big bets in categories outside, right? So as you know, over the last several months, we've launched our entire bamboo line of paper products that span anywhere from like toilet paper to kitchen towels to cleaning wipes to facial tissues and so on. And so really bringing that whole, hey, when I think about my home and I think eco-friendly, what are some of those true use cases, right? And pushing the envelope there. And then very forward looking in terms of vision for our product category, we're going to be very soon launching like compostable diapers and feminine hygiene products like sanitary pads and panty liners. And we think there's a massive market out there to be disrupted where people can make not only a very good quality choice for themselves, their kids, but also, for the environment. So some very exciting innovation coming up the line, and especially as we think about the fem care, baby care, and home care segments. And so that's from a category standpoint. In terms of just milestones, for us, it's always about expansion, right? From a commercial standpoint. So EcoSoul we started off largely as a US brand. We're now expanding beyond US. We've already expanded to Canada and India, right, with our D2C presence. And we're going to launch in new marketplaces such as UK and Germany very soon in terms of our market expansion. But also you will see a lot of expansion in the US and retail stores, right? We're going to launch in bigger box retail stores. Some exciting announcement will come out in the news in the coming months in terms of the bigger retail national chains that we'll start to see EcoSoul products. And so both the retail as well as the D2C expansion will continue. So hopefully we're able to double this book of business that we are at by the end of the year, and then again double it by the end of next year.
And I'm pretty sure by the time both of us turn 80, I think we'll have a solid content to write a case study or even a book about how things started and how we grew during. This is arguably like a COVID company. Like both of us, we are a COVID organization. It's all
Right.
mostly virtual. International to begin with. It's just
Right.
For you, especially when the way you manage logistics, operational issues that were plaguing every single brand at that time and still continues to. Your organization has been able to do a very good job in managing. I think that's just a masterclass.
Yeah, man, it's been tough, right? I mean, we fundamentally built the supply chain the right way. I said right early on, during COVID, there were shortcuts we could have taken in terms of building our supply chain. A lot of brands did that, right? And a lot of early stage eco brands still continue to do that. And ultimately, man, in the D2C, in the consumer product space, you have to understand that if you want to scale beyond a point, there's got to be a certain degree of vertical integration, right, from the source material through the custom, right? If you don't own those journey points or have a very close contact point with those journey points, you do lose a lot of the big competitive edge that you have in the marketplace. And that's something that we did early on. I mean, even though it took us 6-7 months to ship our very first product, which you may say, oh my God, you guys took 7 months for the time what were you guys thinking? But we felt that was the right thing to do, right? To get the right certifications, to get the right manufacturer set, to do it the right way. And we're now seeing that blueprint has continued to permeate across the organization. Of course, the other thing is like from a supply chain perspective, the other thing I'll call out is we are not reliant on China, right? China is a decent portion of our supply chain. But we're not reliant on it, right? For almost every major material category, we don't do more than 50% of, we try to keep less than 50% of our sourcing to China. So which means we have very well-established source geographies like India, Vietnam, and Thailand, right? To serve us. And we think that ultimately will, the whole China plus one strategy and diversification in the manufacturing world is becoming real. That thesis is backed by a lot of leading venture capital firms, a lot of leading private equity firms. And that will continue to be the case as we evolve into the world with new geopolitical situations. So always having a very diversified supply chain also helps us in terms of being able to keep our promises to our customers, to our D2C partners, who are doing a fantastic job. I mean, if you ran out of inventory, what would you sell, right? From a Xena perspective. So that's been a very critical focus for us from a supply chain standpoint.
And finally, what would be your advice for other entrepreneurs who have or are planning to enter the CPG space, product space, even sustainability space? Like, what would your advice be for them?
I would say 3 things, man. Number one, like when you decide to enter a space, always think big, right? Think really big. And if you can't see a world where like you can go and disrupt a really large problem, it's probably not worth the effort. So, or you have to think harder, right? I think that's one thing that I would say, like, always make sure that you're going after a very large total addressable market, right? Or a very large undisrupted market space. And to be honest, in the sustainability realm, there are a ton of such spaces that are still up for grabs, right? So I would say that's number one. Number two, as an entrepreneur, as a CPG entrepreneur in the consumer space, man, it's a question of do things the right way, right? A lot of people will say, hey, let's go build a brand. But understand what truly, it may work for some people, right? But it may not also work for some people. So really understand what your company has set out to do. Our mission was to democratize the market for eco-friendly essentials. So for us, it was most important to get that price value paradigm right and get it right for our customers. Building the brand was step 2. Building the supply chain, the back end was step 1 for us. May not be the case for every brand, but truly understand, like, don't spend a lot of dollars on brand building and don't go and, first of all, hire a CMO and so on. I mean, we did make some mistakes, but look, don't go and spend a ton of dollars till you really understand what your companies ought to do. And you've built a back end that's ready to go serve that market, right? At least that applied to us. I'd say third thing, hey, if you're thinking of entering a space, hey, jump with both your feet in. I don't see a world where like you can go very far when you're not fully committed to your brand or to your product. to your product, right? So I think that is something that I would say is super important. And then the fourth thing is, man, build a company that you want to build, right? Like a lot of investors and a lot of other people will give you a lot of great pieces of advice. Some of it will be valid and relevant to you. Some of it won't apply to you. So being able to cut through the noise and building the company that you truly want to build is the right thing, is important, right? So for example, choices that you make around like how you market, right? Whether you go heavy on marketplaces or whether you go heavy on your own D2C website. These are choices that fundamentally you have to make very early in your journey and stick by them. And there's no right or wrong answer, but understand that every category, every brand has its own path. So do what is right for you, not what seems sexy, right? Or what a lot of people don't do what the buzz tells you to do.
All right. Great advice. On that note, thank you so much, Arvind, for your time. And again, very grateful to have known you and to have seen you and your company grow. And of course, we have miles and miles to go ahead as well. All right. Thanks, Arvind.